Hey everybody, welcome to episode 82 of Tactical Crouch. That's right, we're back after just 2 days for our week 5 preview episode. I'm KickedTripod, joined of course by Yiska and Volamel. A lot of stuff to talk about, so we'll get through the housekeeping stuff super duper quick. Show is completely supported by our patrons and our fans. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Support there. We've got a game night coming up. We should be able to announce it on next week's episode when it is. That's my commitment to you, is we're going to know by then. Next thing, follow us on Twitter at Tactical Crouch. Watch us record the show live at twitch.tv/KickedTripod on Mondays and Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Other than that, hey guys.
Well, that's record time. Everybody, give this man a round of applause. I think that's the fastest we've gotten through that. That was AGDQ quick.
I'll give myself that.
Yeah, that's warranted.
I'll give myself that.
Well done.
Yeah, get it out of the way and talk about some Overwatch League because there's a lot to talk about. Hero Pool's going live this week. DPay did a pretty cool AMA yesterday. We learned some interesting news there. That some of the makeup games for the teams who haven't been playing and the homestands in Asia could start getting played as early as next week.
Oh,
so that's pretty dope. No official confirmation on that at all, but it's good to know that we're getting to sooner rather than later at this point. Other than that, though, is that really just it? Is there anything to add to that?
Not really. It's just good to hear that the league's trying to facilitate ways for these teams that haven't been playing to finally get out there and showcase their stuff. Kind of getting tired of seeing Boston just get beat up week by week. And yeah, it'll be nice to get some new teams, get some new looks. It was always fun to, it was fun last week getting to see Atlanta come out and debut. And we have a whole half of a league to debut yet. So that'll at least kind of keep you satiated for a while.
Yeah, should. But that's really it. That's the news. Dun, 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 dun. So newsy. Let's jump in then and talk about week 5 because we do need to preview these matches. Before we do, though, we do want to give a special thanks to our patron producers. Battlecrab Made, Pin, Lotion, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Pork Chalk Sammy, Kasha 67, Kushi, Kopi, Salsa Boy 91. Hey! That was
and he still had breath left at the end there. Did you see that? That excess oxygen he still had? He could have kept going. You know what that means.
We've got room. We've got room. Thank you all so much for supporting the show for such an incredible amount. Appreciate you all. And let's get talking about week 5. And of course, we're going to start off by discussing hero pools. 3 of the 4 heroes being banned have major implications on this week's meta. Reinhardt, Widowmaker, and McCree. Obviously, Moira is banned as well, though I think we can safely say it should have a smaller overall impact, I would say, than those heroes from the meta that we've seen in the past. That is.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about Reinhardt first. Reinhardt's been a staple of tank play in Overwatch League. He saw just about 87% playtime in the last 2 weeks. So, Joe, with Reinhardt out of the picture, what adaptations, do you expect these teams to make this week?
Surprising no one. I think there's kind of 2 very obvious directions, at least in my mind. And that's Winston and Orisa kind of filling in the blank. It depends on the maps being played on any given match day. It depends on, what team's playing. But I think those are probably the 2 leading, beneficiaries from seeing Reinhardt removed, at least in the tank position. I don't know that we'll necessarily need. I don't know that a May ban was needed, because again, I agree with what Surefour had said publicly, that if you remove Reinhardt, I don't think May gets a ton of value. That idea could be implicated and could be kind of positioned for Orisa if Orisa becomes the kind of dominant in the meta in week 5. But again, I think that could be something we could have seen if, let's say, this was just the new meta and we just play out the rest of the season. May could have been something that kind of messes and toys with some of these Orisa compositions, but with only 4 days worth of actual scrim time for most of these teams, I don't see May being useful. And yeah, I have to give the nod to either our Winston or Orisa here.
Yiska, you feel about the same? I mean, I think it kind of makes sense. What about Wrecking Ball? Is there any chance that we see some ball dive type stuff here like we've seen in the past? Or
I'll be real honest with you. Like, I got this coin here. It's my boy Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And this guy's just going to decide for me what is played, because I literally, like, if you don't know what's being played in scrims, by induction, there's nobody in the world that could answer these questions feasibly, I think. So it makes it super random. If you're a bookmaker, woo, boy, yeah, fun.
Like, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one, because that, like, somebody's going out of business with these.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's twice, right? We're getting hit twice. Yeah. The first thing is we don't know what's being played, and then we don't know how these teams adapt to that specific meta. And there's also the possibility that more than one thing is played, and there's once again scrim balls or whatever. So we're coin flipping. I have a feeling that it's going to be more dive than not.
Yeah.
But that also very much depends on the maps that each individual match is played with.
Yeah, definitely does. Well, what about on the flip side, on the DPS side, we're talking Widowmaker and McCree being out there. So basically taking out the viable hit scan options that we've had in the past, leaving, I mean, I guess you can kind of, I mean, Reaper is technically hit scan, right? So
for sure.
Yeah, but I don't, he's not McCree Widowmaker.
It doesn't fill that same kind of like mid to long range.
Yeah, exactly. So the kind of heavy single shot hit scan heroes we've seen so far are no longer going to be in play. How does this affect? And I get, and I think there's one thing that we want to say here is this is a lot of speculation. Anybody who says they know, either is seeing scrims
in scrims, yeah,
or they're just doing their best to kind of game theory it like we are and trying to come out with the most likely results. So,
because keep in mind, it's not just a thing of game balance or character availability. It's also a social component of what teams are likely to run and which of those teams are the most dominant that determine the meta, not necessarily game state as a whole.
Sure. So Widowmaker McCree being gone seems like a pretty big shot, especially to some of the teams like Philadelphia Fusion are playing this week with Carpe, not having Widowmaker and McCree for Carpe. What does that do for Fusion? Paris Eternal with Xe. Do we see less Xe? Does Soon come back in? And will we see Soon again? There's a lot of speculation there around how these are going to affect teams. Joe, do you think that it's going to affect them that wildly, where we might just see players like Carpe and Xe take a seat for some of the non-projectile specialized player or non-hit scan specialized players?
Not for the most part. I think in a majority sense, a lot of the hit scans that you can kind of list off that will be playing in week 5, your Corys, your Edisons, even Sharp, anybody who you can name probably has other heroes in their repertoire like a Sombra, and I expect that to actually see a good amount of play. I think it's actually the May players that are going to see some sort of rile up, because they all don't have what I'm considering to be applicable heroes to kind of pair alongside the Sombra. Not all of them, most of them I would say they do, but in varying degrees of success. Nico can play a very good Genji, but as we saw last week, his Doomfist was lacking, let's say. Then you've got Philadelphia, who I think, again, Carpe, they've given this kid a 3-year contract probably for a very good reason. I think he can probably play almost any hero to a very, very high degree. I don't think we've even seen how good his projectile can be. I think his Genji is very, very good. I think his Doomfist is very, very good. Yeah. I struggle to see where he could actually get lapped. And that's kind of the big question mark for me, is if Doomfist does come back in, is 4 days enough time to get people prepared, or will we actually see Chipsa? I think this is going to be the biggest, for any fans of Chipsa, I think this is going to be the biggest chance for you to see your favorite player. But even then, I think it's very limited and probably not likely. But in general, I think a lot of the hitscan players do have a Tracer, do have a Sombra, do have something else that they can play, even in the Orisa kind of slower compositions that we're speculating on. They have something to pilot in there, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, cool. So, well, let's just get right to it then, and let's kind of put our I almost said put our balls out on the table.
Pull a dog, man.
Yeah. Let's put something out there. Yiska, sure. in your opinion, who do you think is the team with the most to lose this week because of the changes?
It would probably be Washington Justice, right? It would have to be. Like, they have the perfect, or I feel like 5 of their players are at least on a hero that they like. I will say that doesn't necessarily mean that that's their meta, because not all Winstons are created equal, in the sense that metas require different types of playstyles per hero, and not everyone, just because they're main of that hero, excel at that. We've seen aggressive divas, we've seen defensive divas. Not everyone can switch it up. So depending on what the meta requires of you, I think the skill set required, so to speak, is vastly larger than the hero number that we have, right? So a team doesn't need to just, how many heroes do we have? 31?
Yeah, 31.
Yeah, right.
32.
Doesn't just need to cover the 31 heroes. They need to cover 31 heroes and then their modular playstyles A, B, and C, theoretically. And that's not true for all heroes, because generally, like, even though I struggle to name one where it isn't the case, but for instance, sometimes you want Lucio to sit back in certain metas and be defensive. Sometimes you want him to be the assassin. Sometimes you want him to be flexible and understand when he can switch. Sometimes you have Orions that can get away with being very aggressive. Or, of course, we have Orions who don't excel at that playstyle. So that's what I mean. But in terms of Justice, I think that changed a lot for them around. And I think, for instance, a player like Corey will probably be fine, even though it kind of sucks for him that his signature picks have been banned away. But I think a player of his caliber rarely is constrained to just, like, being a DPS head click monkey, if you want, right? He isn't just this good because his aim is nutty. It's also because his reaction time is nuts and his on the fly thinking, and also to a large degree, also his positioning is very good. So, and the movement with the aim and whatever. So I think that transitions quite well to other heroes. If that means Ashe, probably not. But there's still, there's the legs, for instance, in those situations. There's Tracer, which we could see him on. So yeah, I think just like from how we conceive of this team right now, and last season, seeing the rise of their quality of a team during that very similar meta, it has to be Washington Justice for me.
100%, and I agree. I think it's a great point. I have a different pick, but to kind of supplement that, why this is the perfect time to see Tuba, and even with Tuba coming into the meta, with a Doom, with a Pharah, even though I don't think Pharah is all that strong right now, with the hero pool as it stands currently in week 5, don't think Pharah is going to be a strong pick, and that's his best hero. So now you have a dilemma where you either put Corey onto a Sombra, you can put him on Tracer, but I think Sombra probably is going to see a good amount of play, map depending. Looking at the maps that Justice will be playing, we have Nepal, we have Dorado, Kings Row, Dorado in particular seeing a good amount of dive. Busan, good amount of dive will probably be played there. Havana, Eichenwald, not so much, but I think somebody's going to need to pilot the Sombra. And do you want your star player to be playing a more supportive hero? Do you put somebody who has less kind of oomph, has less firepower like Stratus onto the Sombra to kind of play supportive DPS and allow Corey to farm? Those are the questions that are going to have to be answered for this team if they want to do well at home. Again, this is one of the teams that's 0-2 at home. They have 5 homestands. If you're going to want to sell tickets, you have to be box office here. For me, I think this is Paris. Paris is probably the best team that'll be playing this week that has a chance to plummet. If Nico can't play Doom, and if that match last week was to be a theme or a trend, we've got problems. On the flip side of that, they can pilot the Soon, they can do XEI, Tracer Sombra, something like that. But again, like, do we want Ben Best on Winston? I don't think so. Right. Yeah. I think that his Ryan is his best hero. Do we see No Smite? It's tough to say. You have 4 days to prepare for this. I think you probably want to keep running the same stuff. Hanbin's going to be absolutely stellar, but there's a lot of question marks around what exactly Paris does. How do they adapt? What composition do they run? Again, I think there's probably 2 schools of thought here with, again, 4 days of prep. I think you either play slow and you play Orisa, something bunkery, or you play dive and you try to get at it very quickly. You could see Nico on Genji, but that's about it. I think they have a good chance to plummet this week.
It's a great thought.
I think, okay, this might be weird, but I because of how coaching and how language works in the Eternal, I think they've become a lot more rigid to, or less vulnerable, I would say, to these meta flips. I think, honestly, from the insight I've gained, they just all have a better meta understanding because of the coaching stuff now. They conceive of Overwatch differently than they did last season. And I have reason to believe that, of course, this requires me to predict the meta and saying live or whatever, but if that is run, I could see that they could excel at that based on the general conception they've instilled in their players. And if you're not a believer in just like that, me telling you that, look at the players, like we talked about it on Monday. Look at the players that aren't the new ones.
By the way, Yiska, you are cutting out a little bit. So,
am I?
Yeah. Is it dropping for you a bit too, Joe?
Yeah, a little bit.
Cool.
Good amount of.
Not sure if I'm lagging or.
Yeah, it's just roboting a little bit.
Either way, I think, to his point, I agree. Like, they have instilled a lot of fundamentals in much in the same way that like the Shock have, right? A lot of these accolades, a lot of this praise can be pointed at Krusty and kind of being similar there. My problem with that is, how do you communicate that in a team that admittedly still has communication problems? That's my big linchpin here for this team. And going forward into the coming weeks, you're constantly having to adapt. You're constantly having to switch heroes. It's going to be messy. It's not going to necessarily fit every single week. And I think this team's going to suffer because of that. They're not going to be able to refine the meta. And I think this team actually exceeds when they can just sit and, take their time and grind out the meta rather than change the meta week by week with these hero pools. I think hero pools have gutted Paris, and I think you're going to see them drop quite a few spots.
So what about on the flip side then? Let's go to teams with the most to gain this week. Yiska, got any feelings there?
Let me look at the entire lineup that's playing. So I think volatility generally benefits the worst teams, which means that teams like Houston and Boston could benefit from this.
Sure.
Is it better now? Okay, sweet. The problem is that they play against pretty harsh opponents other than the Uprising. The thing is, I'm not sure if that style really fits them better. I think it has to be either Houston or the Defiant, because they were the ones running meta compositions already previously. If once again, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that because you ran a specific meta while it was off meta and now it becomes main meta, that you're better at that, because other teams could catch up to you and like just execute better
theoretically
and want to mirror you. Now, here's the thing with Houston, where I don't think that will hurt them as much. For one, I don't think the Eternal right now has a player that can rival Blase on Doomfist. And I think just as much as that was the case in stage 4 meta, in the playoff meta, Doom decides a lot of or has a lot of weight in these comps. I would say that's the most important role in these compositions. Has the most kill power, gains the most from someone being really skilled at it, seeing the opportunities, having great timing, mechanics in terms of like nap knowledge. Do they know how the movement stuff works? Stuff like that. I'm going Houston.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yep.
It's really interesting because we just talked about Paris being one of the teams that could really stumble this week, and they're playing Houston, a team that could really catch.
I like the way you're thinking, John.
Catch up.
I like the way you're thinking.
2 + 2 is 4.
I like it.
Yep. So I can't wait to talk about that specific matchup, because right now the odds have it at 78-22 in favor of Paris. And I don't know if I still think Paris loses this one, but I do think that I do think
that's a lot closer.
So glad
it's
that you
a
say
lot
that.
closer.
I'm so glad that you say that. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, we
would have had a fight.
We're just another week of Outlaws apologists.
Just like how we had a fight last week and the show almost ended because there was no possible way that Houston could win. Oh, and look, they almost won twice.
And they didn't.
Oh, they didn't win last week?
Won twice.
I mean, wait. You were 0% right about what you said last week.
You're right. I was 0% right that I thought that Houston, what was it? Houston, London would have gone Houston's way. 3-2, you can have that. You were also 0% white in Houston, Toronto.
Yes.
A lot of people were wrong.
Yeah.
They still won. If Houston, London was 0%, what was Houston, Toronto? -100?
No, I gave them 55. My argument always was that Houston cannot be the overdog in that matchup. Hence why I would have given it 55 towards London, or like 60, and went 3-2 for London in the predictions that we did. And then, of course, we were both ridiculously wrong in terms of Toronto. I think we both said 3-0, right?
I think so. I might have said 3-1, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'll go back and look, whatever. Still, narratively, I'll take a victory. I'll take a W. I'll self-proclaim a W. They came up, they showed up.
Chat says Yiska was more wrong.
Thank you.
And chat gets to decide who's more wrong.
That's right. I like it.
Another pleb boy. Get the hell out. Like, see? Look at this language now. Yiska was objectively spot on.
Objectively.
Yiska always goes for
the only thing objective here is this man's old.
Job, bitch.
The only thing objective is that you're a geriatric, okay? That's all I need to say.
Whoa. All right. Let's go to the matches. Let's go to Toronto versus the Florida Mayhem. Toronto versus Florida Mayhem is the closest match on paper here. 57-43 in favor of Toronto on this one. But let's be real. Toronto Defiant are kind of they're in a stall and they're falling. You're at an air show and they're just going in for the grand finale. They're stalling, they're falling. They're falling. They need to pull out the cord soon. Maybe they don't. Maybe it's all control. It's a controlled stall. Who knows? They're not playing well right now. And they just got swept by rain, handing Houston their first 2020 win. How important is it that they rebound against the Mayhem this week, who, let's be fair, have also, I would say, been underperforming?
Yeah, it's quite important, and I think those two teams are both teams that were struggling last week, especially. Mayhem has a better excuse, so to speak, because their pocket strategy of Ana Brick was nerfed considerably to the point where even other teams that showed a lot of Brick, like Houston, only play it on like a map or something, or like two maps and
certain points.
Yeah, certain points, yes. And if your game plan was to run that 70% of the time, of course you will gimped. For Toronto, they just had an underperformance and also didn't look like they were playing up to that level again. So we'll see how they bounce back from that, because we said that roster has inherent combustion value.
Yep.
And to have that feeling not entrenched, I think a lot of their season will depend on the next couple of weeks, because they seem very snowbally of a team. So we'll see how they adapt. But I would, okay, and this is super hard, dude. In terms of who I would give it to, I think I agree with the percentage. It's a close Toronto.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Joe, where do you land on this one?
In my mind, this is going to be a game of which DPS pairing can take over the game. Is it going to be Surefour time and time again, the veteran kind of coming out and being able to clutch it out for this team? Or is Yaki and BQB and whatever kind of mishmash that they're going to throw out there able to take it over? I would like to see Saya player at some point, but there again, his heroes are kind of removed. They do play Junkertown this week, so this would have been a great map for him if hero pools weren't in the meta, but I digress. This is a Toronto victory for me. I think Florida does have a strong DPS pair. I just don't like the rest of the team around them. I think that there's already kind of cracks in the armor. There's already problems. Chris can't play Lucio. He's going to have to probably play quite a lot of it unless they just all in on these slow compositions that could or could not be seeing play. Maybe it is just all dive, and if it's all dive, then I think they have massive problems. And Toronto can pilot both styles, I think, to a relative success, and I think I see that as an edge over Florida. I see both teams kind of, on shaky ground, on shaky footing right now. But I think Toronto just has the firepower, the brute force to kind of just mechanic a win over Florida at this point. I really hope to see them make some moves a la, a Boston Uprising, even though that I think that already spells a narrative out for them. I'd like to see Florida make some moves, but this is a Toronto victory.
So I'm going to disagree with you guys. I'm actually going to go with Florida here. I think I do think that we see less Karayan and more Fate in this one. I think Fate has been a bit of an unknown quantity as far as how he's been playing with in the new year, because we just haven't seen him much. We've seen him on one or two maps.
Yeah, but I think he's supposed to be playing a lot of the Winston, so makes sense.
Yeah, so I mean, I would expect him to play the Winston. I think Yaki, can benefit from this in one way or another. So I think both of them should give Florida a bit of an edge. It's they took London to 5
on a Brig patch though. Like, this is nerfed Brig. This is Chris off of his comfort. So
sure. So I don't know. I think that this is, if the Mayhem, and this is kind of one of those like do or die matches,
like a must win
for the Mayhem. If they don't pull away with a win here, or at least take it to map 5 and make it close, I would be very nervous as a Mayhem fan if you can't win with double hit scan and you can't win without double hit scan. So I think this is the one that they win. I think Toronto are free falling. I think that they're prone to tilt, and I could see, especially if Florida can get an early map, I could see them spiral really quickly. So there. Yay, we disagree about a match result on the show for once.
Yeah, but not by many percent, right? Like,
no.
I don't definitely
I would probably
match.
flip the percentages.
Yeah. But then again, here's the thing. There's a very real chance that this isn't close in either direction. And that's probably true for all hero pool matches.
Yep.
Barring like Shock against Boston Uprising or whatever. That will never be probably a stomp for Boston. But like the volatility, you almost want to split up the percentages, right? Like if you say 60% Defiant, then that entails like a 10% chance of an absolute stomp, or like a 15 or 20.
Right. The percentages are just who ends up winning. They don't actually tell you by, what the likelihood is that they win by a certain margin, right?
Yeah. I mean, the more telling thing is there's definitely like a 10% possibility that Florida absolutely stomps 3-0. Simply because we're playing hero pools, and
I
maybe one team gets it and the other doesn't.
I would normally say 10% is high, but in this situation, I think this is one of those.
Yeah. At any given day, that again, we don't know. There's only 4 days to adapt to this, and if you're just in a spiral and you're in your own head and you have to learn a new thing, does that necessarily fit or is conducive of adapting and learning and trying to figure out what composition you're going to be running next week?
And you have to travel, and you have to, so like that's probably most of a day gone at least. It's going to be really interesting to see. We'll see though how those teams are affected. It's going to be neither of these teams have a second match this weekend, so this is the only match that they're preparing for. Let's go on to match number 2. And that's going to be the Houston Outlaws versus the Paris Eternal. Paris Eternal favored 78-22. Yiska, I'll let you go first on this one. Obviously, the Paris Eternal have solidified themselves as, I would say, a top-tier team in Overwatch League after defeating Atlanta Reign. And comes at a cost of XE not being able to play a McCree or Widowmaker. Do you think that they're in trouble without XE being able to play McCree or Widowmaker? Do you think that soon could get the nod? And could we see XE ride the bench for some or all these maps?
I suppose if we're actually like going full dive with Tracer, but I feel like it's a tough ask of a map to allow that for the entire duration. Now, Soon isn't a one-trick pony. He's shown like a wide variety of heroes in his career, even though mostly he played like one hero at a time or two. And then when the meta switched, he had a couple of other picks. So, that's, but it's definitely a concern. So I don't like the percentage that's being assigned here. I think that's too severe.
Very severe.
I think it's more like I would chop 10% off the Paris Eternal and give it to the Boston Uprising. Like 68, 67 feels like a number that bubbles up when I think about this match.
Joe, how do you feel?
I think again, I don't know how we can all kind of agree that, Ben Bast and maybe the communication, but the coaching staff, they're instilling fundamentals. That's fine and dandy, but Paris plays 2 games. Houston plays 1. Dive might be meta. Houston looks great at dive. I think this is close, and I'm giving like a 5% lead to Houston here. I'm giving them 55, Paris slightly lower. I think there's a lot of things stacked against Paris. They have to figure out what roster they're playing. Houston, on the other hand, I think they have a great system filtered out. Can you match Blase? Answer me that. Match Blase. Who do you put in? You put Nico?
No, that's a problem. It's definitely a problem. Like I'm not mad at this one. I'm not mad. I'm really not mad.
Sure.
I just think that Paris is fundamentally sound.
I think they can be. This is too early to say that they are, especially with hero pools.
Yeah, we don't
This
know.
goes back, and you have to still deal with the communication problems.
Have they shown us enough different looks to know that they're fundamentally sound on those other heroes?
I think that
for Paris,
at least in that,
that's
yes.
to Yiska.
Oh,
yeah,
fair.
Have they shown us more? No. I'm just talking about how they conceptualize the game and what
your analyst eye
extrapolate from that what it could mean.
But now you have,
of course, if they get stomped here, like yes, I will reset my prior. That doesn't mean it's at this point it becomes hocus pocus magic, and as does everything, right? Like we thought Wizard Young had it figured out with those numbers. Sure. Then we found out probably not the case, right? At least for the Washington team. So, which we also have to say, like styles have to fit the team. So
I'm starting to see a little bit of a pattern between you two, and I'm going to generalize a little bit to see if that's where we stay for the rest of the show. Joe, you seem to really favor the strength on a hero so far.
Yeah.
Whereas Yiska seems to be a little bit more on good teams are good teams. Everybody's dealing with the same new curveball or whatever, and the better teams should generally come out on top, even though the percentage points may shift away from them.
I think if you put this match in a similar hero pool at the end of the season, I think I'm much more convinced that Paris can do it, especially if they have a positive track record and Houston still kind of maintains their track record. It's very early to tell. The game has changed again, so you kind of have to not reteach, but in a sense, change exactly what you're saying to these players. In the hero pool meta, let's just call it that. I think star DPS players on star picks will overrun teams that are shaky, that are kind of wishy-washy, that have bad tank lines. Now, again, I'm not praising Houston's tank line, but I think Paris is going to struggle a little bit. They're going to come down to Houston's level, at least at tank. Support, much in the same way. Now, at DPS, that's where the big delta sells me in Houston. You can't match Blase. Dante's very strong, especially in the heroes that we've kind of postulated on.
So his
I don't
Sombra
think
should.
It should. I mean, to be fair, we have to go on the opposite side of that coin. If they have to play Erasa compositions, that still doesn't hurt Muma much in the same way that playing into an enemy Rhine is very much about mind games and, you know, being outplayed in the neutral. Erasa isn't really that hero to kind of like 1v1.
I think he wouldn't even play. I think
there you go.
Hydration might have that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Sweet. We just get him out. I like that even more. I think it's close. I don't think this is 78-22. I think Houston has it a slight edge, especially off the momentum from last week. They only play one game. Paris plays two, and it's against Philly. That's a lot of prep time in 4 days.
I was going to go with Paris on this one, but Joe, you're kind of turning me here, I think.
Can we just like take a step back and realize that we're currently contemplate, like we are in a state of Overwatch where a team that's 1-5 and like won against a team that only also has one win.
Yeah.
That we are now contemplating or thinking about giving them the edge over a team that played like Atlanta Reign and beat them.
Okay.
I'm not having a good time right now.
Let me know when you're done.
I'm not having a good time right now.
My counter argument is 2 words: hero pools.
No, I agree with you. That's my point. I'm
saying, not saying that we're crazy but it's like you literally.
But I can already hear those arguments, and that's my counter to that argument. The game's changed. It's a new game.
Like that it is that way.
The last 2 games are the only
for this to be a stomp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last 2 games are the only 2 games where we've seen Houston deviate from their fundamentals kind of thing and go, you know what? Let's just let our guys play their best heroes and try to fit it as close to the meta as possible. And they almost stole one from London, and then they beat Defiant. And going off of that info, I see, like, it's the records don't tell that story, right?
Yep.
They don't tell that story at all. They're a 1-5 team that all of a sudden, like, have been got handed an olive branch from the Overwatch gods.
Potentially. Hopefully.
Should be. I mean, at this
Right.
point, it's just like, hey, you can't do anything with this. Like,
Yeah. If you really can't do anything with this, you've got problems.
I would say it would be big good for the Outlaws to like win against Paris, which is a big win, at least for us now on paper, and have that feeling carry over into April when it's the first game for them again, because they will have a 4-week break. I feel like that match doesn't matter that much to them right now. I mean, of course, you want to win every game, especially when you're 1-5. But it's like they have a built-in reset anyway.
For sure.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I've changed teams. I'm not proud of my pick here. I'm going with the Houston Outlaws.
You're making some money.
I know. This is where I can make some of those picks back in high noon pick'ems from last week.
Yep.
We're brutal.
I think this is way closer than the odds give it.
Yep. I hate myself though.
Especially with hero pools. Like I don't like this is like a confidence, like the odds are confident in Paris. And I'm not confident in any team right now unless they're like a tier above. Unless they're in like a class of their own, a la Philly, a la Shock, maybe even Vancouver, but that's one game of tape. There's not many people that you can be that confident in. In Paris, in hero pools, with a lot of their heroes that they've shown proficiency in being removed, is not a 70% match make. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
That's fair. All right, let's go on to the next one. Boston Uprising versus the Washington Justice. This is 77-23, 1 percentage point lower than Paris Houston.
To peek behind the curtain for a moment, chat. I didn't even like I didn't scroll down enough to see this percentage. How? How in what world? Let's take a look at their record. The Washington Justice are 1-3. The Boston Uprising are 1-2.
But Corey,
they're playing at home. Sure.
But Corey.
Yes, I agree. I think Justice is the favorite.
77%.
I do have to give the nod to Justice here as a favorite, but this confident of a favorite, like you don't get it. But like whoever site this is that John's pulling that like stats from, and again I it's not that one site. I'd imagine it's a lot of them. It's not you. It's them.
Whoa. Hold on. Let me tell you a little bit about Odds Portal.
Odds Portal sucks.
Odds Portal literally aggregates odds from multiple betting sites to come up with their.
That's my problem.
So multiple betting sites suck.
Yes.
Yeah, I just make them up to give Joe an aneurysm on the. I want to see how many times he has to go through this before he starts drinking on the podcast.
We already had that.
Yeah.
That already happened.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So you do give the edge to Justice here.
A small one.
So
like 65-ish.
And this is a team that we discussed before we went into the matches. The Washington Justice have the most to lose by hero pools. We've said it on the show. This is probably one of the best, most favorable metas for the Washington Justice. Now, bear in mind, the Washington Justice are still 1-3 with a .438 win percentage, a map win percentage. So they're not living up to that hype of this should be their best meta type of thing. But you're still saying that even with Corey being hamstrung a little bit, you still think that the Justice are going to come out on top.
I have to. The Boston Uprising have just let go of a potential good player in at least what we think this meta could look like. Munchkin's not a horrible tracer. I don't think his Sombra's all that bad. And he's gone. Huh? What? And now you've got a replacement main support coming in Hello, I'm Halo, or now known as just Halo. What? That's how you improve this roster? That's gonna move the needle, Huck? That's a team that smells. That's a smelly team. I'm smelling some stuff on this team.
Okay. Yes.
This team something doesn't sit right with me with those moves this early. It's week 5 and we're already making 2 moves like that. Like, that's not a good look.
Okay, fair enough. Yiska, what about you, man?
Well, okay, so heads is of course Justice because Corey clicks them. So let's see. That's the Boston Uprising. Yeah, it's a weird one. I think inherently the Justice have a disadvantage because they have less players, less flexibility,
No depth.
Of course, we can talk about the 7th man and whatnot. I even acknowledge that there is at least like playing at home has an advantage if it's the fans or if it's the practice situation. Be that as it may, I think especially in hero pools that might actually be pretty big. Stupid coin. Now I'm kind of talking myself into saying Justice too.
Too late. I already moved your face.
That might change on Friday when we hand on our predictions, by the way, Joe. I'm not 100% on it, but never mind. So I think this is a weird one where I also agree that the Halo pickup screams to me like you need someone with an NA visa that is able to get into a team quickly. I also don't think he's necessarily an upgrade of a swimmer, but I wouldn't claim to have ever seen both of like extensive footage of either of them to be able to really weigh them. Of course, it's also always a thing of his ability or like adaptability within the team. What does a team need to shot calling and whatnot? But yeah, I think especially like if they're still sick, for instance, that would be an issue for the Justice.
They haven't had did they travel last week? I feel like they've just been sitting at home. No, they didn't play last week. They've just been sitting at home waiting for this homestand. If you're still sick, you might need to go to the doctor. This isn't like just, vitamin C tablets and, adrenaline shots or, vitamin B IVs. Like, you might need to get some antibiotics if you're still sick.
Thanks, Dr. Joe.
Like one more point, but I'm not sure. Like, this is a weird match.
Yeah,
it's definitely
it's like Toilet Bowl 2.0.
No, it's I'm telling you what it is. It is 10-10 against Tamari, dude. Like,
oh my God.
Absolute shit tier Overwatch. Right? Like it's the
how you gonna do Tamari
that nobody
like that?
cares about in the bigger show, using terrible weapons that wouldn't at all work in fights against like literal gods, and it's like this is basically like,
why are you gonna pick out Tamari? Tamari's cool.
There's nothing cool about Tamari.
10-10. Okay, we could agree with that.
Tamari is the Chaozu of Naruto.
Oh my God, we're gonna have to throw hands on that one. Yeah, I like what chat's saying. 10-10 Sakura, that's way more apt. 10-10, like Tamari was actually sick.
Sakura so sucks. Much better.
No,
oh my
way.
God, dude,
awful character.
So much better.
I need to brush up and go watch 10-10
Chaozu might as well be an apt battle.
It's been too long. It's been years. All right. Well, you got your Naruto comparison for the week. This episode brought to you by Crunchyroll, or who's the Funimation? Is that who's doing it now?
Yeah, Funimation.
Yeah, Funimation. You should be watching. Yeah. So okay. I don't know who to pick here, so I'm not going to because I don't have to.
Yeah, you might as well just flip a coin. Like this could go either way. To be completely honest with you,
I'd probably go Justice. Just because, like, I don't think I've seen enough of Boston And I don't think that Boston has been good enough in their losses for me to give them a nod to win.
Like, what you got, Jerry?
Myeonbong.
Cool. I mean, Myeonbong, Aim God, like, at least comparable. And then it's like, okay, if Corey can actually like carry on a third hero this season, maybe even a fourth hero come next, when next do they play? Week 7? Like, I don't know. I feel like if he can carry on that many different heroes and have like star performances, we might have to like put him at least in the discussion for MVP by the end of the season. Like, this kid's actually nuts.
Fair. Yeah. Wow, we're split on every single match so far. Joe and Yiska have agreed on one match.
That's what happens when you get hero pools.
That's what I like to see in here. Let's go to this next one. The Paris Eternal versus the Philadelphia Fusion.
Oh, it's a travesty. It's a shame.
62-38 in favor of Philadelphia Fusion. Just a reminder that the Eternal do play the Uprising the day before. So, and this is the only match for the Philadelphia Fusion. But obviously, we've got some things here. Obviously, we're going to see how Paris holds up against the Outlaws on Saturday with hero pools, and we're going to get a much better idea with how they look there. But given that we don't have that information now, we don't know how the Fusion will look. Obviously, Carpe and Sato will both be affected the most by this. But by how much, Yiska? How much?
Yeah, I mean, the Fusion have always been one of the most prepared teams in the Overwatch League towards meta changes. They've always had large rosters. They always had deep benches in terms of like, they always had starters for other teams on their bench. And that's no different this year. And of course, like, Sado might be the only one that doesn't have a replacement, but also, like, if we're playing Winston, this kid is going to pop off. I think that even buffs him. If we're playing Orisa, so we could still see something like Poco and Fury. If it really was that bad, which I don't think it is. It was actually pretty good in playoffs, I remember. In general, like, that team has just way too many options in terms of like picks. I think Alarm is never going to be a liability to the point, and even if he is, then you have Boombox. Astro is a nuts mercy if something like some wacky stuff like that would happen. If they are 2 flex supports, they have 2 flex supports, one serviceable one amazing one on their roster. There's basically very few things that you could throw at this roster other than the modes of heroes that I talked about in the beginning, where the styles don't match in terms of like offensive, defensive diva or whatever. Like, that could be a possibility, but really, like, if there's probably few teams that are more prepared for meta adaptations. Now, my question is, how does that come together? And
how quickly can they do it?
Yeah, and if your theory, which I tend to agree with, is true, that DPS in such a volatile meta state, like, individual skill on DPS can make the most difference, I think we're looking at Fusion as one of the best teams in that regard, just reliably. I think even if the McCree thing isn't working, like, we know Carpe on Tracer, right? That's the thing. We know Hiso can play a bunch of other stuff. We know we can count on in terms of like, whatever hits can you want to throw on top of that, especially if they split up the hero pool and hit scan and say, Carpe, you play this, Sisu comes in for this. And then the projectile, even if 2 projectile happens, they're completely fine. We haven't talked about in the review episode about EKO. He didn't look like lackluster, so that's definitely someone I would field in a situation. And you're still coming out ahead, especially against the Paris Eternal, I think, who clearly has like, or at least in our conception, because we haven't seen some of these players like soon, in terms of like the tiers of players they have on the roster. Now, of course, some of those, as we already pointed out several times, like, some of those players have elevated their level, and that doesn't mean that Soon couldn't be there. In fact, Soon is one of those players that have had amazing career longevity, and especially with great coaching, I could see that making a comeback. I mean, we're once again, like, there's so much, but you have to give it. I think you have to give the advantage to Fusion. You also have to make it probably bigger than the other matches, but in general, I wouldn't be surprised to just like see a Paris come together or a mismatch with like lots of moving pieces for the Fusion.
Joe, where are you at? I feel like this might be the one where we actually agree for Fusion here.
Oh. Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of the points made. This is a roster that can field and pilot almost any meta to an extremely high caliber. Even if you have to play Orisa in Sado, doesn't necessarily get to be a threat. You have 5 other threats in the field that can carry from any position. Again, I still maintain the fact that the Fusion can carry from all 6 positions. And if you minus one, okay, fine, whatever. You're slightly weaker. Everybody's slightly weaker. So the delta's probably still about the same size. This team's sick. We keep seeing statistics that prove the team's sick. Hero pools should not affect them as much as everybody else, and especially the Paris. I have to go Fusion here.
Yeah. But by the way, just to quickly point out, I memed Kisu is not eligible. At this instant.
I still think you can say what you said, like especially going into the future,
going forward. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the one question, because I think people want to know: is there a world and a meta where chipset comes out?
That's what I was going to bring up.
I think so.
I think so.
I think so. I think this could be a good meta. I just don't even know if he's here.
Yeah,
if he's here, then he might see some stage time, especially if Doomfist is as important as I think it might be. Looking at the maps, they play Ilios. Not a horrible Doom map. Junkertown, you're not going to see chips there. Blizzard World, that one's kind of up in the air. So again, it might not even be worth it to have him move over here this quickly. I think Carpe, EQO, even Ivy, even though he hasn't been completely like as stable, but at times he can look very good. You have an absolute killer of a DPS line. I don't know that you even need Chipsa 4 days out. You're gonna kind of change up the chemistry of the team by putting him in. If we were gonna see him, it would be in a meta like this, and even then, I don't know that you see him. So that kind of tells you what you need to know on that.
Yeah, this is about as opportune as it gets, assuming that we read the meta correctly, and teams aren't just all of a sudden like, well, with main shield gone, soldier's good all of a sudden, and like we all of a sudden see some like weird soldier mercy blah blah whatever. You know, that's totally arbitrary, but yeah, it makes a ton of sense. This would be the time to do it, but still,
real fast. I think that we can't see McCree banned next week because he was McBanned this week. McBanned. We could see Sombra McBanned next week. Week 7, we can't see Sombra and McCree McBanned, but week 8, we could see more Doomfist. So the next chip sighting might be week 8.
There you go.
Mick week 8.
That's the JMac virus.
McBanned. That might have. We're gonna have to fit that into the show titled. Yeah. Cool. All right. I think we all agree on this one. Then Philadelphia Fusion. Yep. Eternal would have to look really decisive against Houston in order for me to change that pick.
100%. Like if they come out 3-0 handshake, we have to. That's a whole nother discussion to be made. I don't see that happening, but that
Joe,
there's a world.
We're getting excited at this point for Paris Eternal, right? If they're now still
if they can come out in hero pools and still show up and be a top, okay, this team might even be higher.
Yeah,
like that's insane. Yeah. That's some wizardry stuff. That's some. Yeah. I can't even think of a Harry Potter spell that does what that does.
Yeah.
Hermione Granger didn't teach me that in wizarding school.
Maybe Rush is the Sasuke to Krusty's Naruto.
Shut up. These are all ham-fisted. You're not even trying at this point.
I mean, it's not that bad wrong.
Oh, Philly doesn't play week 8. Wamp, 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 wamp.
Oh, yeah, true.
So what? What do you mean?
So,
So
Chipsa,
my whole,
seeing
like,
Chipsa
yeah.
in week 8
Oh,
doesn't work.
Yeah, it won't exist. Whatever, next they play.
Yeah. All right, on to the next one. The NYXL versus the Washington Justice, and I don't know where they got these percentages either. 72-28 Justice. I think NYXL should be pretty resilient here, personally.
Wait, what are the numbers?
72-28 in favor of
72.
NYXL.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're about to have a nervous breakdown, right?
Yeah, I was like,
Oh,
wait,
did I
what?
say it wrong?
No. I was just like, it didn't click.
Got it. I just think that, like, even this feels pretty close.
It's
like,
a little high, but again, I don't.
Oh, I think it's low.
Oh, you think it's low?
I think it could be 75,
it could be higher.
77.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. There's not much. Even going off of Saturday's game, off of Uprising, like if you go in there 3-0 them, that's a whole different caliber of team you're playing against. New York. Granted, New York is not season 1, season 2 New York where they're dominant.
Oh,
however, this is a baby fusion in a sense. You know, you look at their roster, they should be able to field almost anything that's thrown at them. It's just not as strong. Washington, on the other hand,
Tuba would have to. I think Tuba would be their ace in the hole on this one.
not gonna happen though.
I know.
Spoiler.
I know.
Yeah. So yeah, it's New York. You can't not pick New York here.
Yiska.
Yeah, that's some cheeks getting clapped. That's there's dude. On the other hand, okay, let's think the other scenario. It actually doesn't look like an upset, and Washington is actually better. In those cases, I'm really starting to hate this whole dumb shit. Like, it's just like with such a small roster and also fairly limited players, it feels like from a deserving point of view, unless there's like nuts coaching where they actually teach like Stratus to play all the projectile heroes miraculously, but it doesn't feel that deserving, and it feels like whatever that happens in order to make that right is either New York losing to themselves or like ridiculous lucking into another best meta situation in that right moment, where everything goes right for Justice and nothing goes right for the NYXL.
Again, NYXL gets to see them play. They only have one match, and it's after you get to see them play and figure out what kind of style they're going to opt into against Boston. Let's check if the maps are similar. Against New York, Washington is Nepal, Dorado, Kings Row. Washington, Boston is Busan, Havana, Eichenwald. I mean, they're kind of similar, not too similar, but yeah, I don't know. This, like, it's so hard to see a world. Like, if Washington actually upsets them, like, I don't even know. Like, can you even bring up sandbagging at this point? Like, are they like taking it early, like taking it slow early? Like, that's tough. It's tough to say. It's really hard to see a world when New York loses.
New York are 4-1 still. They've got the second highest map win percentage in the league. Yes, they did lose. But I don't. Why can I not remember who they lost to?
Oh, New York?
They lost to Fusion. Yeah. So even then, I mean, they've been 3-1, 3-0, 1-3, 3-0, 3-0. And I don't know. This isn't a team like, yes, they haven't played great. The first 4 matches were all played without Libero.
Sure.
You know, like I'm not in the doubting New York position yet.
I'm hoping. I'm you know, this is a saving grace for New York in my mind. I am hoping that when they heard hero pools before the start of the season, they said, okay, cool. We're just gonna give Who Are You the good couple weeks to start. He can start. We don't have to worry about playing Libero. Libero can come in during hero pools and just absolutely tear people a new rear end.
By the way,
I'm hoping that's
something that Sideshow has alluded to, and I'm not sure if that's based on information from the coaches he has talked to, but that's also the conclusion he came to as to why Who Are You is being played over Libero.
I hope so, and I think we alluded to something similar on the show where they're trying to integrate him early. I think it's more interesting to tie it to hero pools and seeing how flexible Libero can be. Again, and this is content that I'm going to make at some point in the near future. This is a franchise player. Why we can see Carpe have 3 years. Why don't we have Libero have 3 years? This is a 3-year guy. Guaranteed money. This is cash money. Playoffs cash money. If you give me 20 million right now, I'm going to Libero and saying, I'll give you 5 years. He's 20. What, 22? He's young.
22 is almost
22 is not young. 20, okay, is fine. Not young, but not old.
He's 20.
He's 20.
Okay,
3 years. 3 years. Would you agree with 3 years? 3 year guaranteed.
Yeah. The thing is, they just have such an abundance of talent that will attract other talent. So maybe they are in a position where they don't need to really commit to long contracts.
I agree.
But can just count for every new rookie that's like nuts but young to come in. Maybe that's just their position.
At some, I don't know. Last year, what was it? I think in season 1, maybe going into season 2, I wanted Dallas to go after Libero because again, the whole narrative was that Flower was going to come in. Now they've got Who Are You to kind of court and build up, and if that's going to be your star player, then why'd you buy him? I don't like. Yeah. It's a guaranteed money with Libero, so you're always safe. But maybe you could upgrade. But if you do upgrade, why? I guess you can keep him and deny a lot of people in the league a massive upgrade, but it'd be a shame to see him ride the bench and Who Are You just kind of blast off. Like it would actually be a detriment to the league. But yeah.
All right. Let's go to the last one. Boston Uprising versus the Atlanta Reign. 79% in favor of the Atlanta Reign on this one. I'll start out on this one and say I know that they really struggled last week.
Yeah.
But this team just seems too flexible to lose. Like
yeah.
They didn't even show like 3 of their additions, and they're pretty big signings. So who knows what they're going to pull out and adapt. I will give them the first week jitters on this one. Of course, if they come out looking bad in their only match, right? Yeah, it's their only match this week. Then we might have a problem.
And it's against Boston.
It's against Boston.
If you even go close against Boston, you got problems.
And if you're Boston, I think you're preparing as much as you can for Washington.
Yeah, and that's there's no Jerry to save you. Like at least on the picks we know him.
We don't know.
Yeah. True. We don't know. Yeah. But
if you're going to subscribe to the idea that because this is such a chaotic meta, because you have 4 days to prepare, and DPS players can take over a game, how can you boldface tell me, even against like a middle pack team, like you put Atlanta against, I don't know, Mayhem. I don't even know if they're mid pack. Maybe London. Maybe London's a better example. You look at Erster and you look at Sharp, look at Edison. What do you do? What do you do when those kind of players can run over the game? Atlanta looks sick. Like, yeah, their support line isn't like the best. Their tank line depends on who shows up. That's another coin flip. Like, I don't know if it's Gator. I don't know if it's Popo. You got me stumped. I don't know if FRD is really going to matter. I don't know if Hawk, his underperformance last week is going to matter. When you have Erster and one of 3 fantastic DPS players, 2 of which we haven't even seen yet. How do you stop that team? Especially if you're Boston. What do you do? I really do not see a world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have much to add on this one. It should be, and honestly, there's so much that would have to change with what we know about these teams for it to be anything different. And I think speculating on that point is just kind of disingenuous. So.
I'd be lying to the public if I said that Jerry could come out with his, chubby cheeks and his, beautiful, personality and somehow beat this team. I don't think Color Hex, and I know that Yiska, thinks Color Hex is somehow better than Leaf, and we'll discuss that in hopefully the coming weeks.
No. I'm not saying he's a better player. Keep it straight. I'm saying mechanics.
Regardless, you would say that Color Hex has not shown up into the league yet.
I mean, mechanically, at least, yeah.
Sure. Even if he did show up and you pair him again with Jerry, do they stand any chance against Erster and company?
Nah, my dude. Like that's the thing.
What do you do?
That's like that's the problem. Like the Erster is just, how is he nuts on everything, dude? Like Erster is seriously, like, he might be the scariest player in the league right now. It's just like,
I don't know if I go that far.
Like, who's scarier?
Carpe?
I'm not sure if that's true, dude.
Oh, come on.
Like,
in the clutch? Are you kidding me? The consistency that this kid does in overtime?
I mean, okay, we haven't seen much of Erster, but the very same is true for, like, Erster. Without Erster, this series is not close, dude. He clutched that
he
stuff
did on
out so
Hanamura.
often on, yeah.
Hanamura, he did have a clutch.
He's got a lot to earn yet.
I think he is very scary. I don't know if he's shown enough to be the scariest.
Yeah. And the thing is, he has nuts mechanics.
Yes.
And like very quick on the fly thinking. You see that when people don't have a boxed idea of how they use their walls. Like, you can coach good walls, but when you need an unorthodox wall, then you see like, okay, oh wow, okay, he applied something there, right? And Erster is like this with those, right? Like, I remember the Hanamura play from up top where he like blocking with the ice block and everything. Like, he's just like in the zone, right?
Sure.
And if that keeps up, I mean, he paired with the mechanics and everything, dude, that's so
MVP.
Scary.
He could be by the end of the season in talks for DPS Role Star and season MVP, especially if Atlanta does well. Like, I can't disagree with you in that.
Yeah, potential is through the roof for the kid for sure.
Yep.
So we'll have to see, but we're at the end of the show. We're there. We made it.
Did we not go ridiculously long this time?
No,
How long did we go?
Hour 10?
Hour 12. Not
Okay.
bad for us.
This flew by though. I feel
it actually went by really fast. I couldn't imagine doing 10, 11 matches.
Yeah, it's going to be rough.
It's going to be kind of crazy.
yeah,
But
that's crazy.
yeah, we do need to get out of here. Before we do, big thank you again to our patron producers. Battlecrab made Pin Lotion, Charlie L, Audio Compass, Pork Chalk Sammy, Tasha 67, Coochie Kopi, Salsa Boy 91. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We really appreciate you. If you like the show, go to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. You can support right there. We've got game nights, Discords, all that kind of stuff. We also have Race the Mayhem going on, the Mayhem play this weekend. You might have to lose another pound or 2.2 kilograms or whatever it is. Or a kilogram is 2.2 pounds. That's what it is.
Yes.
Other way around. Do that. Do it in style. Go to bit.ly/race the mayhem. We got some cool shirts and stickers up there. We got mine coming. Excited to work out with it. Looks pretty cool. I'm excited to try and use it. So, yeah. Other than that, we do have a couple new patrons. Salsa Boy 91. Welcome to the Patreon. We really appreciate you. And Jin 41. Welcome as well. Thank you so much for supporting the show. No new 5-star iTunes reviews, but if you like the show and want to support any way you can, a great way to do that is go to iTunes, search for Tactical Crouch, leave a 5-star iTunes review, and leave a comment so that way it'll put your name next to it so that we can actually thank you on the show. Otherwise, it'll just give us a 5-star review, and that still is very helpful, but we won't be able to thank you because it won't show up. Other than that, you can find me everywhere at KickedTripod, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Yiska, what about you, man? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you? What you've got going on? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I didn't quite finish the TV guide. If you want to last week's matches, that's probably going to come out tomorrow. Other than that, I'm on the verge, I think, of just like bursting out with a lot of content. Once like every legal stuff is like figured out, and then we can have some good time. Also, coincidentally, when the league just goes in overdrive with 10 million games.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to my 110-hour weeks.
Yeah, yikes.
Yeah.
Big yikes. Joe, what about you, man? Shout outs for the week. Where can people find you? Any good content you've got coming up?
As per usual, on all the socials at Volamel. That's Volamel. Check out GG Recon for why I think the Overwatch League should be load managing, especially their starters. Check out some analysis on the Washington Justice. Things ain't getting better. Spoiler. And follow the YouTube because I am like 90% done with an alternate Overwatch history. Going to be trying to put a little bit more production value into it. But it should be a fun one. Should be a blast from the past that people might not remember. So that'll be fun. Good history changing stuff there. And then, yeah, written content coming this week, franchise pieces, franchise players, maybe some predictions. But yeah, be on the lookout.
Awesome. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. Again, follow us everywhere at Tactical Crouch. You can listen to the show anywhere where you can listen to podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Spotify, anywhere. Literally, we're also on YouTube at youtube.com/KickedTripod. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the games. Come join us, discord.me/Yiska out. We hang out in voice chat in Discord, and you can hang out with us as we chat about the games, see them live, and listen to Joe and Yiska and Made meme for a couple hours out of your weekend. It's a great time. Come join us. That's going to do it for us. We'll be back after the music for the post show. Until then, see you next time. Bye.